I want you to take a second and just picture the most famous painting in the world.
I bet I know which one you're thinking of.
Right. Just close your eyes wherever you are and conjure up that image. You are picturing the Mona Lisa.
Definitely.
It is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the art world. I mean, it draws millions of visitors who crowd shoulder to shoulder just to get a glimpse of it behind that thick, bulletproof glass.
Oh, yeah, it's a madhouse in there.
It really is. But here is the question I really want you to think about today. Why? Why is it so universally famous?
Hmm.
Is it the sfumato technique?
Well,
You know, the masterful Renaissance brushwork?
that's what the textbooks usually say.
Right. Or is it that slightly mysterious smile that art historians have debated for centuries? Or is the foundation of its fame something else entirely?
It is the perfect question to start with. Because the way we perceive art, and specifically how we assign this immense cultural value to certain pieces over others,
Yeah.
it's rarely as straightforward as just the paint on the surface.
Yeah.
Today, we're going deep into the surprisingly simple story of how a relatively quiet masterpiece was abruptly catapulted into absolute global superstardom. And it wasn't because of some sudden reevaluation of its artistic merit by critics.
No, not at all. Our mission for this deep dive is to uncover the true story, drawing on excerpts from a document called Text Kale. We're talking about a transformation that permanently altered the trajectory of art history. And honestly, it was driven by an event that reads way more like a thriller than a dry art history lecture.
Exactly. And we need to frame this conversation carefully. On the surface, sure, this looks like a straightforward true crime story about an art heist.
A really crazy one.
A really crazy one. But as we explore the details today, you will see that this is fundamentally a story about human motivation, the inherent fragility of institutional security, and perhaps most importantly, an exploration of the unpredictable, often manufactured mechanics of fame.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let us travel back in time to the early morning in 1911. The streets of Paris they're slowly coming to life.
It's that quiet before the city really wakes up.
Yeah, you can imagine the crisp morning air. And standing there, magnificent and imposing, is the Louvre Museum. Even back then, it was recognized as an absolute titan of the art world, this colossal monument to human creativity.
It was massive, but it is vital to understand that the culture of museum security was, it was entirely different than what we experience today.
Right, no metal detectors.
No metal detectors, no laser grids, no motion sensors, and certainly no closed-circuit cameras. It was this brawling palace filled with countless treasures, and it was guarded primarily by an assumption of public decency.
Which is wild to think about now.
It really is. They just had a sparse staff of watchmen patrolling these endless, echoing corridors.
And inside one of those quiet halls hung the Mona Lisa. Now, obviously, it was respected. It was a known quantity among art historians and, affluent travelers. But how exactly was it viewed by the general public at that specific point in time? I mean, was it the crown jewel of the Louvre?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And that contrast is essential for understanding the scale of the phenomenon that follows.
Right.
It was certainly admired, but it was essentially a quiet masterpiece. It was just one of many brilliant works hanging on the crowded walls of the Salon Carré.
Nobody was fighting through throngs of tourists to see it.
No, there were no velvet ropes holding back paparazzi. It was just a small portrait quietly existing in the museum.
Hmm.
Absolutely no one could have imagined that this specific painting was about to become the center of a global media storm.
Which brings us to our inside man, Vincenzo Perugia.
Yes.
When we think of the art heist of the century, pop culture trains us to picture this sophisticated, tuxedo-clad mastermind orchestrating a highly complex operation. Think Ocean's 11.
Luring from the ceiling on wires.
Exactly. But Perugia doesn't fit that profile at all.
He's the complete antithesis of the Hollywood cat burglar. Perugia was just an unassuming tradesman. He was a handyman who had occasionally been contracted to work at the museum,
Doing what exactly?
specifically constructing protective glass cases for some of the artwork. He was an ordinary laborer.
So what drives an ordinary handyman to wake up one day and decide to steal a priceless Renaissance artifact? Was he broke?
No, his motive was nationalism. He wasn't a mercenary looking to fence a painting to a shadowy billionaire. Peruggia was driven by a deeply held core belief that the painting rightfully belonged to Italy.
Ah,
He viewed it through the lens of historical injustice. He believed that this masterpiece by a great Italian artist was essentially being held captive in a French museum. So he decided to personally correct what he perceived as a historical wrong.
wow.
What's fascinating here is how Perugia weaponized his own ordinary identity, because he was a familiar face.
Just a worker in a white smock.
Exactly, a worker in a white smock. He possessed a mundane status that allowed him to blend in perfectly. He represents the ultimate camouflage, the invisibility of the blue-collar worker in a grand institution.
He belonged there.
He belonged there. And because he belonged, nobody paid any attention to him. That invisibility is the most potent tool in his arsenal. The security infrastructure of a place like the Louvre wasn't designed to defend against the people who swept its floors or built its display cases.
It was designed to keep out external threats.
Exactly. Perugia bypassed the entire security apparatus simply by wearing the uniform of a laborer.
Let's walk through the actual execution of this because the sheer nerve required is staggering. We are looking at an overnight stakeout.
Sunday night.
Right, Sunday night. The museum is closing for the day. The bustling crowds filter out into the Paris evening. The heavy doors are locked, the gas lamps are dimmed, and silence falls over those massive halls. And Perugia he's just inside,
He waited patiently in a small storage closet.
which is terrifying.
You have to consider the psychological endurance required for that. The Louvre at night is a cavernous, intimidating space. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant footstep of a night watchman on his rounds would be amplified.
Your heart would be pounding out of your chest.
Oh, without a doubt. He spent the entire night hidden in the dark, surrounded by centuries of history, just waiting for the precise window of opportunity.
It requires a tremendous amount of patience. But the extraction, the execution of the heist the following morning is what truly defies belief.
Sunday morning.
Right, a Monday morning, a day when the museum is closed to the public for maintenance. Perugia emerges from his hiding spot in the shadows. He walks into the Salon Carré. And what does he do?
The reality of the heist was shockingly low-tech. He literally just walked up to the wall, lifted the painting off its heavy iron pegs, and carried it into a nearby stairwell.
That's it, just lifted it off the wall.
That's it.
This is a detail I think a lot of people miss. We are so used to seeing paintings on canvas that can be, cut out of their frames and rolled up into a tube.
Like in the movies.
Exactly. But you can't do that with the Mona Lisa, can you?
You absolutely cannot. This is a crucial technical detail from our sources. The Mona Lisa is a panel painting. It is painted on a solid piece of poplar wood.
Wood, not canvas.
Right, wood. You cannot roll it up or fold it. It is rigid. So once Perugia had it in the stairwell, he had to dismantle the heavy glass-fronted frame he had actually helped build weeks earlier.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah. He had to extract the wooden panel and figure out how to transport a piece of wood roughly the size of a modern television monitor out of the building.
Which he does by simply slipping the wooden panel right under his white worker smock. He tucks it under his arm, essentially, and walks down the stairs.
And that leads to the most absurd moment of the entire operation. He reaches the ground floor courtyard, and the door is locked.
Oh.
He is trapped. He has to actually dismantle the doorknob to get out. And even then, he can't get it open. He needs the help of a passing plumber.
A random plumber.
A random plumber who just assumes Perugia is a fellow worker locked inside. And the plumber finally opened the door for him.
Imagine trying to pull off the art heist of the century today with that kind of exit strategy. You have an invaluable artifact under your coat, you are stuck at a locked door, and you rely on the kindness of a random plumber to let you out into the Paris morning.
Walking out calmly and quietly.
No guards stop him, no visitors notice, no alarms ringing, no dramatic chases over the rooftops, just a quiet walk to freedom out the front door.
It completely shatters our modern illusion of security. We expect grand, insurmountable obstacles to protect our most treasured cultural artifacts. But the reality was astonishingly mundane. The masterpiece was gone, and the museum administration was entirely unaware.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the quiet, stealthy part of our story is officially over. We pivot now to the incredibly loud aftermath. Eventually, someone is going to notice a blank space on the wall, but it didn't happen immediately, did it?
No, it actually took over 24 hours for the museum to realize a theft had occurred.
Over a full day.
Yes. And this speaks to the operational culture of the Louvre at the time. When museum workers and visiting artists finally noticed the empty pegs on the wall on Tuesday morning, they didn't immediately sound the alarm.
Because they just assumed there's somewhere else in the building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The museum had an official photography studio. It was incredibly common for pieces to be temporarily removed from the galleries to be photographed or cleaned. The guards and the regular patrons simply assumed the painting was upstairs having its picture taken.
Wow.
It wasn't until a visiting artist specifically requested to see it and a guard was sent up to check the studio that the horrifying reality set in.
The moment that guard came back down and said, it's not in the studio, the panic must have been absolute.
Utter confusion.
The museum is thrown into total lockdown. They're frantically searching closets, under benches, behind tapestries, but the bird has flown. And once the Louvre administration realizes what has happened, the news escapes the building and spreads across Paris like wildfire.
This is where we see the birth of an icon, the birth of a modern media phenomenon. We are in 1911. Print journalism is at its absolute zenith. Newspapers are fiercely competitive, constantly looking for sensational stories to drive circulation, and a brazen theft from the nation's greatest museum is the ultimate sensational story.
The newspapers go completely berserk. They are printing dramatic headlines. The Mona Lisa has been stolen.
Exclamation points everywhere.
Everywhere. They are printing full-page photographs of the painting. And you have to remember, visual journalism was still relatively new. To see a high-quality reproduction of this specific artwork blasted across the front pages of millions of newspapers suddenly put the image of the Mona Lisa in front of people who had never set foot in an art museum in their lives.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this media hysteria is the exact moment the Mona Lisa transforms from a respected artwork into a global sensation. The intense daily coverage manufactured a level of public investment that simply did not exist beforehand. People were literally gathering in the streets of Paris just to talk about the mystery.
They were lining up outside the Louvre once it reopened, not to see art, but specifically to stare at the empty wall. The empty space where the painting used to be became a more popular tourist attraction than the painting itself ever was.
It is a profound psychological shift. The actual presence of the painting didn't draw crowds in the streets. It was the absence of the painting, combined with the dramatic narrative of its disappearance, that suddenly made everyone care. The drama of the theft created the legend. It became a cultural touchstone.
It became the ultimate true crime mystery of the era. And the tension doesn't just resolve in a week or a month. This is a story that dominates the public consciousness for 2 long years. The painting vanishes into thin air. The authorities are entirely baffled.
The 24-month delay is fascinating because it highlights the complete failure of the police investigation. The authorities were looking for a highly sophisticated international ring of art thieves. They were chasing down complex conspiracies, interrogating high-profile suspects.
Even Picasso was a suspect at one point.
Yes, they were searching for the painting across borders.
Meanwhile, where was the painting?
It was sitting in a false-bottom trunk in Vincenzo Perugia's incredibly modest one-room apartment in Paris,
Unbelievable.
just a few miles away from the Louvre.
It is the ultimate blind spot. The police couldn't fathom that a singular, low-level handyman had humiliated the French security apparatus. They simply couldn't conceive of a motive outside of high-stakes financial gain.
And we have to consider the psychological burden on Perugia during this time. He has successfully stolen the most famous object in the world, a fame that he inadvertently created, by the way.
Right.
He is living in a tiny apartment with a piece of wood that the entire global police force is actively hunting for. Every knock at the door, every glance from a neighbor must have been terrifying. He is trapped by his own success.
He can't keep it in that trunk forever. Eventually, he has to complete his mission. He has to return it to Italy, which leading us to the mistake, the unraveling of the entire plot.
After 2 years of the globe wondering where this masterpiece is, Perugia finally makes his move. He travels to Florence, Italy, the birthplace of the Renaissance, and the place he believes the painting rightfully belongs. And he makes a crucial, fundamental miscalculation.
What does he do?
He contacts a prominent Florentine art dealer, offering to return the painting to its homeland. He expected to be hailed as a national hero and perhaps receive a modest reward for his expenses.
He genuinely thought he was going to be thrown a parade.
He really did.
But you can't just walk into a gallery and present the subject of a 2-year global manhunt without raising some eyebrows.
The art dealer was immediately suspicious. He agreed to meet Perugia at his hotel room, but he brought along the director of the Uffizi Gallery. They examined the wooden panel, checked the crack patterns and the museum seals on the back, and authenticated it.
And
They essentially told Perugia, "Thank you, we will take it from here." They walked out of the room and immediately contacted the police.
the audacity of the theft is finally met with the inescapable reality of the stolen item's immense infamy. Perugia's deeply held belief that he was correcting a historical wrong ultimately led him right into the hands of the authorities. He is arrested in his hotel room. And just like that, the triumphant return, the most wanted artifact on Earth, is recovered safely.
Safely back in custody.
So what does this all mean? The thief is caught. The mystery that captivated the world is finally solved. The painting goes on a brief, triumphant tour of Italy before being safely escorted back to the Louvre Museum in Paris. The empty space on the wall is filled. Everything goes back to normal, right?
Well, no. And that is the ultimate irony provided in the source text. The museum physically went back to normal, sure, but the painting returned to a world that had fundamentally changed how it viewed that specific piece of poplar wood.
It wasn't just a quiet Renaissance portrait anymore. It was a survivor.
Precisely. The 2-year disappearance acted as a global marketing campaign that money simply could not buy. The theft provided an aura of notoriety. It became an artifact with a thrilling, globally recognized backstory. Today, millions of visitors come every year to see it because of this event.
That's the crazy part.
We can draw a direct line of causation. The strange, low-tech theft of 1911 is the exact catalyst that forged the Mona Lisa into the most famous painting in the world.
It is incredible to think about. When you fight through those crowds today, holding up your phone, trying to get a quick photo, you aren't necessarily doing it just to appreciate the brushwork. You are doing it, whether you consciously realize it or not, because of Vincenzo Perugia. You are participating in a legacy of fame that was entirely manufactured by a man in a white smock.
It highlights how delicate and subjective the ecosystem of cultural value truly is. We often think of masterpieces as having an inherent, undeniable gravity, that their sheer artistic brilliance naturally draws the entire world to them. But this history reveals that sometimes that gravity is entirely dependent on external human drama.
Let's summarize this incredible journey for you, the listener, because it is just so perfectly bizarre when you lay all the pieces out. You start with an unassuming, quiet museum worker driven by misplaced nationalism. You have an escape plan that relies entirely on a simple hiding spot, a piece of wood fitting under a coat, and a helpful plumber opening a door. You have a 2-year disappearance where the police completely miss the guy living a few streets over. And you have a media frenzy that transforms a piece of painted wood into a global obsession. All of these incredibly ordinary human failures and motivations collided to permanently alter the landscape of art history.
This raises an important question. Think about the things we value most in our culture today. The monuments, the artifacts, the icons we deem priceless. How much of a masterpiece's worth comes from the actual art itself, and how much is simply driven by the dramatic stories we tell about it. If Vincenzo Perugia hadn't walked out of the Louvre with a wooden panel under his coat in 1911, would you even know what the Mona Lisa looks like?
It is a wild, lingering philosophical question to leave you with, and it completely shifts how you view the world around you. Next time you see an iconic image or hear about a priceless artifact, ask yourself what story truly propelled it to that height. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the stories behind the things you think you know, and we will catch you next time.